One more time. We're back again, family. I hope all is well. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody is good. Today, uh, this show is going to be a little bit different. So what we've been doing here, we do relationships here at the Clipperdome Chronicles. The relationships are very important. What we do is research. I do research-based information. I don't give my opinion. I have taped, documented research for the last 10 years. So I watch a lot of YouTube like everybody else. I do a lot of studying and research. I have some key go-to people. Most of mine are from the elders. It's people that are a lot older than I am, people who've been doing things for a long time. So we like to get the repetitious, cyclical cycle of relationships, things that reoccur often. Um, so today, I want to do my monologue. I want to talk about in our relationships. When you meet someone, do we know their history? Do we understand where they come from? So when you see somebody, you see the individual, you see this aftermath, this product of something, this product of somewhere or some other people. It's an accumulation of things that has happened to that individual before they got to that point where you met them. So what I started out doing in my barbershop, in the hair salon, I started writing it down first. And then I started recording it. And then I found out that it was a pattern. There was a pattern. So when I saw this pattern and I saw that people were saying the same thing, I was saying, how can I bridge the gap in communication? How can I get men and women closer together? Because our relationships are hurting in our community. Because the mother and father, before they have a child, they have a history. And we need to know the history of that individual before we come together. We need to know that history before that family is brought forth. Then there are families on both sides. The man has a family, and of course the woman has a family. And then they bring forth this child, and then that's going to be the lineage. So that day is going to start the history for that next generation. So in our relationships, because we don't usually know the history, we're going to unpack a little history today. I want to talk about a few things. So we're going to talk about the history of some things that you know very well, some very prominent situations. And then we're going to tie that back into relationships. We're going to go back to where you are currently, the things that you're going through today. Lamborghini used to work for Ferrari. Excuse me. Lamborghini used to work for Ferrari. The cars that we all love, the cars that we see that we know, the cars that a lot of people marvel about, these high-end exotic cars. Lamborghini used to work for Ferrari. A lot of people don't know that. So when we see these cars today, we don't know that there's a history and a relationship that these two people had together. So Lamborghini worked for Ferrari. Lamborghini bought a Ferrari before he created Lamborghini. That is the history. Okay, so the aftermath is now we see these two cars. Some people like them, some people don't. But these two cars, these exotic cars, these high-end cars, a lot of people hold them to a high regard, not understanding the history of these cars. So Lamborghini did buy his first Ferrari, but they used to work together. Lamborghini used to work for Ferrari. I want to talk about Robert Kearns. Robert Kearns, you all deal with Robert Kearns every day of your adult life, and you do not know it. Robert Kearns invented the intermediate windshield wiper system. So Robert Kearns went to Chrysler and Ford. Both Chrysler and Ford denied that was going to work. They said that won't work. Nobody's going to buy that. This is something that we want to invest in. So Robert Kearns was just a regular blue collar working guy. Came up with an idea. He invented the intermittent windshield wiper, and it's in every car, every modern car today. If you drive down the street and you see a car, it's probably going to have an intermittent windshield wiper system in it. That's Robert Kearns. In 1964, he invented that. That is the history. So he had to represent himself in court against Ford and Chrysler because they took the idea from him and then they used it and then they sold it to other companies. So now that's where you get all of the cars having the intermittent windshield wiper system in the vehicles. That is the history. That is where it comes from. One of my favorites, and you all know the Tesla car. Nikola Tesla was a great inventor. There are at least 300 of his patents that you use every day and you do not know it. Nikola Tesla was an inventor. He was eccentric. He was called crazy. He was called different. He was called arrogant. He was called a lot of different things. Nikola Tesla had the internet in 1890. I'm going to say that again. Do your research. Nikola Tesla had the internet in 1890. But because it was so advanced, because it was so cutting edge, because it was so before its time, that's why you don't understand who he is. So now I'm going to tell you, Nikola Tesla used to work with Thomas Edison. You know who Thomas Edison is. He created electricity. That is what they tell us. Okay. That's because JP Morgan was financing Thomas Edison. So Thomas Edison got with JP Morgan. So him and Nikola Tesla went to the World's Fair. The World's Fair used to be what we would call a big convention. It used to be held in Chicago. So everybody would set up their invention or their products or their services, and they would go to competition in Chicago. Nikola Tesla had alternating current. Thomas Edison had direct current. That's why you have a pole in front of your house. That's why you see the poles on the streets. That's direct current connected with the wire. Nikola Tesla had wireless connection with electricity back in the early 1900s. So now you got a little history. We see the history. Now you got the aftermath. Thomas Edison wins. I want to talk about my sister, Sophia Stewart. Sophia Stewart is a black woman. Sophia Stewart wrote 2 books. The movies that you all know well and enjoy. The movie The Matrix and the movie Terminator. My sister Sophia Stewart wrote books on those movies in the 80s and 90s. She also had to go to court, and she also had to fight the powers that be to try to get the rights to what is hers. In 1999, they offered Sophia $7 million for the Terminator, and she wrote the Terminator back in the 80s, early 90s. So her books became movies. So now you see the aftermath, but now you know the history. In our relationships, we go up and we walk up to this man or this woman, and we have our ideal situations. We have our mindset. We have what we think this is going to be. Maybe we like them, maybe we don't. We have some contingencies. Maybe it's perfect. Maybe it's love at first sight. These are our relationships. So what I did is I wanted to unpack some history so that we can go into our relationships. So when we go into our relationships, we have to know the history of this individual. It could be a very rich history. There could be a lot of things that you do not know. A lot of times we go into our relationships with what we know. You can talk about what you know all day. If you're a lawyer, you could talk about the law. If you're an engineer, you could talk about engineering. If you were a carpenter, you could talk about carpentry. If you were in the medical profession, you could talk about medicine. If whatever you do that well, and you can talk about that all day long. But usually what gets us in trouble in our relationships is the things that we do not know. So what I have learned is I dig deep. I go to the core. I don't do surface. I took the 10 years. I did the research, and I learned men and women. So now I get to have a different experience because I understand the history. So when I put my videos out, I try to keep it light. I talk to the different individuals that call me. Unfortunately, what I do, I am not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor, and I'm not a therapist. I am just somebody that cares. I am somebody that took the history of men and women, the experiences of men and women, and I documented it, and then I taped it, and now I have these experiences that I can share with you. So we want to go to the history, and then we want to talk about the aftermath. So when you walk up to this individual, this person, this woman, this man, you have to understand that they come from somewhere. And we would like to minimize people. We like to subtract before we add. This is what we do, most of us, in most of our relationships. We already walk up with our fists balled up. We walk out with our knives in our hand and our guns on our side, cocked and ready to shoot. But what we need to start doing is understand that there's a history. We have a history as well as they have a history. And we need to sit down and respect that these two people have differences. They come from different social, economic, religious backgrounds. It could be, a plethora of different things that keep you disconnected. But understand, you have flaws just like they have flaws. And that disconnection could be huge, but you need to understand that there's a history behind it, like the things that I stated earlier. What you see is not always the case. But once you learn the history, you can make a better assessment when you're dealing with that man or that woman in that relationship. And most of us, we just take people, the aftermath at face value, and we don't understand where they come from. I did a video 137. That's about my Uncle Bobby. Video 137 was about my Uncle Bobby, and I was with my daughter. We do the Clipperdome Chronicles. It's where both of us sit down and we try to bridge the gap in relationships between the generations. So it's called the Next Generation Conversations. My Uncle Bobby was very influential in my life, and then it transferred to my children. And so my aunt called in on that show, and then she called him and passed him in on the three-way, and then we had a conversation. But today I want to tell you some more history about myself. My uncle Ray passed. My Uncle Ray was a very influential part of my life, and I want to give you some history with that. My Uncle Ray was an influential person in Detroit. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. He was very influential. He knew a lot of people. He was in the community. He was in the government. He was in business. He was in basically all of the movers and shakers of the city. He knew them or he dealt with them. But what he did for me, I remember I had a restaurant back in the day. I had several different businesses, but the restaurant specifically is where he helped me the most. So he came to my barbershop, and I remember he was on the side of the building, and he came to my barbershop. He said, "Hey, nephew, I need some food, So I said, "Okay, what you need?" So I was going to cater this event for him because my uncle is always doing something. Okay, listen, this guy is always something. Okay, he was always in everything. So when he came down to the barbershop, I left the shop. I came outside. I talked to him, and he said, "Hey, I need such and such and so and so." So okay, so now I felt that he was trying to take advantage of me. So now I'm young. Understand? We're talking about 95, 96. I'm like 25 years old. I'm a young. No, that's not true. 28. I was about 28, 29. That's when I opened my restaurant. So when at that time, when he came down to the barbershop and he asked me to cater that event, I'm a young man. So because he dealt with so many people doing so many things, he could have called anybody. He knew everybody in the city. But I was young and I didn't understand that he came to me. So because I was young, I didn't understand his history. He was always about family. My grandfather, his father, was always about family. And everybody has their own way of trying to show that and trying to bring that forth across to you so that you can understand it. I did that event for him and I didn't make any money. So, of course, now I have bills, okay? I was a young man. So he came back, put up on the side of the barbershop. He said, "Nephew," he said, "I need you again." So now, I'm looking at his side. I'm looking at his sideways. I'm like, "Oh, no, man, this ain't working." So I listened to what he said. He said, "Hey, we have some people coming in. We're going to do this community activism piece. I want you to cater it, blah, blah, blah." So, all right, cool. I did it again. This time I made a little money, not what we agreed on. So the third time I called him and he connected me to the city of Detroit. And I catered the mayor's inauguration in Detroit, one of the parties that they throw, because there were many, there were several. So I had the opportunity to have one of the parties. So the mayor went to this specific school. It was a honors high school where honors students attend. Only honors students can go to the school. So I was there. I met the mayor. My uncle put it together. We took a few pictures, and then it all panned out. So what I'm trying to explain right here is when you understand the history of something, you can get the aftermath better. Had I understood the history of my uncle, who he was and what he was doing, I wouldn't have questioned him. But because I was young and I didn't understand that history, I questioned what he was bringing to me. But he ended up changing my life. So here tonight, understand the relationships and talking about the history. Of course, I'm full. I had opportunity to go home about 6 to 8 months ago. So my uncle, his son is junior, And then there's the third generation. So I got to talk to his grandson. So we sit in the living room. Of course, before he passed away, I had the opportunity to talk to his grandson about another business that I had. So my uncle called me in and I sat down and I talked to one of my cousins I never met, never seen him before in my life. But because of what my uncle did for me, I was able to help him through and get to some things. So that was huge for me. But now that he passed away, I'm glad that I had that opportunity, because I said to myself, I said, my uncle's getting older. Because he did so much for me, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. There's nothing that I'm doing that's that significant. And I'm going to take my time out to help my family. Because if anybody knows me, I'm all family. That's it. It's period. It's first. It's not perfect. We all fallible. We all have flaws, but it's about the family first. I'm talking about families collective. It's not one individual. It's about a group of people. So that's my Uncle Ray. We were talking about the history and the aftermath. So now I want to talk a little bit about my history. So the barbershop that my uncle pulled up to. If you ever heard of Sports Clips is a sports barbershop. Okay, they're nationwide. They have big league. There are several sports barbershops that are in the industry that are established. I had the first sports barbershop in the United States. It started in 1993. That is the history of where the Clipperdome Chronicles come from. It comes from men and women, the history of relationships that started in that barbershop. This has nothing to do with barbering. You've never seen me with a pair of clippers. You've never seen me inside a barbershop. When you can transcend the very thing that got you to where you are, then there's another level of understanding with the history and the aftermath. So now I wanted to put that out here today. This is something that is unrefuted facts. These things that I'm telling you can be researched. You can look it up. You can understand it or not. You don't have to like it, believe it, or understand it. But sometimes you just have to respect it. So I just wanted to put that out here today. I want y'all to take this. I want you to test this. I want you to try this. Take it to the barbershop or take it to the hair salon. Take it to the job or take it to the church. Remember, you don't have to like it, believe it, or understand it. Sometimes you just have to respect it. This is the Clipperdome Chronicles. Thank you.